Welcome to our short demonstration on vSphere integrated containers and port mappings. In this particular demonstration, we will deploy a container. This container will run a web server, in this case Nginx, and through the use of port mappings we should be able to access the web server from our vSphere container host. So let's have a look. We have a 3-node cluster here. Now, because this is being managed by VIC, in order to deploy VIC, vSphere integrated containers, we do need to have a distributed port group, which we call our bridge network. And I have my bridge network right here, as you can see. And so if we have a look at our uplinks, each of the hosts that are participating in the cluster should have an uplink connected to our distributed switch, and there we can see all of the uplinks. And this is for container to container communication, as well as a vSphere container host to container communication. And in order for port mapping to work, this definitely needs to be in place, as our container could be on a completely different host to our vSphere container host. Okay, so with that in mind, let's now go ahead and start rolling out VIC. And so I've already downloaded the binary, and in this case I'm deploying on a Photon OS. So in this case I use the VIC machine Linux binary to create VIC. So the bridge network is specified there. I'm also specifying an image store. I'm giving some credentials along with the target, which is my vCenter server, and then my compute resource is the management cluster. So I can just kick that off. And initially what you'll see is VIC going through a whole bunch of validation checks to make sure that the environment is okay for deploying VIC. And now you can see the VCH or vSphere container host being deployed. That will supply us with our Docker endpoint for which we can create containers. And now we're just waiting for that to come up with its IP information. The reference to the ISOs here, one of them is for the VCH and the other one is to allow us to bootstrap the containers as VMs and bring them up with the images that we require. So there we go. It all looks good. We've come up with our Docker endpoint. And so we can have a quick look at that. And that all looks good. A lot of information there. So our next step then is we're going to run. And we'll detach it, run it in the background. And we're going to specify the port mapping. So what we have here is port 80 on our container. We'll map back to port 80 on our VCH. And of course, what I'm going to run is Nginx, the web server. So I don't have the image downloaded locally, so it's going to pull it down for me. And once the download is completed, we do the extraction. And at this point, we would assume that our container is running. We can check. And there we go. Nginx is indeed running in this container. So let's now connect to our VCH, which is that IP address there. And let's just see if we get access to Nginx. And there we go. So that now shows us that port mapping is working in vSphere integrated containers. The container running Nginx has its port 80 mapped to our VCH or virtual container host port 80, and in that way we can access the web server. And that completes the demonstration.